broken system chained and tangled up in lies. Voices shouting, screaming in defeat. Politicians playing games under darkened skies. Hope lost in the dust of the street. Red and blue, colors pouring from the sky. Debates turn to anger, oh, the crowd gets loud. Punches flying in the blink of an eye. Truth buried deep beneath the shroud. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Faces on the screen, flashing perfect teeth. But behind those eyes, just rotting greed. Politicians turn to whispers beneath. They all just get what they need. Whispering conspiracies, drowning in their lies. Echoes of freedom, lost in cries. Spin the wheel of fate, let's see who rise. But this game will bleed you dry. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Welcome to the bullpen, where the weak will survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive.
Well, good morning and welcome to the bullpen, the final bullpen before the election. Although the election may already be over with Kamala Harris. Now we're just fighting election fraud, is what I hear. So it's been a crazy week. When we went off the air last week, we were watching Trump go into the McDonald's and start his shift, and then he became a trash man. Um, then we had Peanut and Fred killed. So nothing really happened this week, right?
I mean, Peanut and Fred could change. I mean, New York is in play because of that. I'm kidding. There is a Karen on the run in Texas, and she better not pop up after what she did to Peanut and Fred. Oh,
Yeah, they people have tracked down who reported because she was bragging about it, and yeah, that's gonna haunt her for the rest of her life. She's already off of all social media. I'm not going to say any names or anything because until it's actually proven that it was her, I'm not going to get into the whole defamation thing. But yeah, if you were in Texas and you reported a guy having a squirrel in New York and got the squirrel euthanized because you were jealous that the squirrel had more Instagram
in-
followers than you, yeah, you're a problem. And the government overreach is a problem. And really, people are asking why are we making such a big deal out of this? It's it's because, I mean, the government won't do the things that we are asking them to do and that they're supposed to be doing, but they will go in and send six officers to detain somebody while they hunt down his pet and then kill it.
Pets, because don't
Pets.
forget Fred.
Yeah. Yeah, Fred keeps getting left out even on the screen. He's behind the chat instead of front and center, but can't do anything about that. So,
Alan Bakari said Fred Peanut was a Harambe level event, and it's hard to argue. Yeah, as the great
does that mean the
thumbnail that
collider's been put on again?
I don't know, but as Brahma's great thumbnail choice shows, we agree it is a Harambe level event.
Yep. Yeah, and we've got a new ticker down there. EV Mux keeps adding features, so I figured we would add the ticker to give some current news while we're talking. So hopefully you guys like that. I think it's pulling from Fox News, so that's as far to the right as I can get the news ticker to bring in. So
Yeah, Newsmax and One American News probably don't have ticker
no, I
that you
don't
can
think
pull.
so. But
But
yeah, it's been a crazy week. I mean, literally, we were watching Trump work at McDonald's at the end of the last show, and so much happened since then. Uh,
yeah, doesn't it like it feels like it's been months
yeah,
since
that
that
feels
happened?
like a month ago. Yeah, I mean, it's insane how quickly the news cycle's moving. Um, and we've had a lot of polling come out. We'll talk about the polling at the end, specifically about the polling at the end. But the thing to keep in mind is a lot of the pollsters are going to start showing things tightening up so that they can't be called out for being dead wrong. I'm still kind of sticking with Atlas and with Rasmussen. Mark Mitchell over there at Rasmussen has been detailing exactly why he's polling. His polls are coming out the way that they are, and what his weighting is, and everything else. I still think they're polling far too left of Trump, and we'll see how it goes. But I think it's going to be a not really a necessarily close election.
Well, I'm going to show, like, we've had a lot of, I mean, I think polling is an important place to start. I know normally we do it later,
Sure.
but given what Ann Seltzer dropped yesterday,
Given the Iowa +3 for Kamala or whatever it was.
which is the most retarded poll,
Yeah.
there's no way. Like, Trump won it by 8, then by 9, and the Republican registration in Iowa has only gone up as an advantage since 2020. And somehow we are led to believe that where New York and California are moving more right, Iowa somehow moved to Kamala. And not just moved, we're talking like Titanic shift where it moved 13-point swing.
Right.
Like 10 points lost for Trump plus 3 more to Kamala. No.
I
That is not what happened.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't trust a poll that came out and said that California or New York was +3 for Trump. So I'm not going to trust a poll that suddenly magically comes out with Iowa +3 for Kamala. That it doesn't make any
All
logical
right.
sense.
Let me go
And
ahead
they're
and
trying
share.
to say that it's because of the abortion issue, but no, that's not
So,
what's happening.
yeah, so I've got a screen ready to share here. So this is from Nate Cohen of the New York Times,
Let me get it on the scene real quick.
because the New York Times did their final tracking polls, and this is again what's been shifting the betting market is, in addition to Seltzer in Iowa, the New York Times dropped all these polls that suddenly showed Harris up, 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 up.
Right.
You know, but here's something, all this is his whole explanation thread, right? You can see thread, tweet 1, tweet 2, tweet 3, tweet 4, tweet 5, tweet 6, tweet 7, tweet 8, and then tweet 9. He finally gets to a big point, which is non response is a concern. Dem response rates ticked up in this survey, with white Democratic responses outpacing Republicans by 15%. That's more like 2020 than our prior polls. We shall hope that there isn't a non ignorable problem here beyond what we can wait in. He's
Right.
basically admitting that this last poll is completely effed because Republicans stopped answering because they were probably like, "We voted, we're done."
Yeah. That's
And
exactly what's going on is you've got people just dropping out of, well, if you early vote, two things happen. You stop responding because you're already done with everything, and you stop getting the election emails and text and everything else because it's already marked off on the internals that this person's already voted. We don't need to we don't need to keep trying to spend money on them. So
exactly. But I mean, this to me is the like, this is the part where he's giving away the, like, this is the "don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain" tweet. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm gonna. This is so that in the future, when the polls turn out to be very wrong, he can say, "Look, we knew this was a problem, but what were we gonna do? Spike the poll?" So and I think here, let me see. I think I have it in my bookmarks here. Yeah. So this is Iowa. This
right.
is by like county in Iowa, and this is the registration change from 2020 to 2024. Do you see all the R pluses? You'll
Yeah,
see that
there's a few.
yeah, that even in places like where it was D plus 2.6 is switched to R plus 9.1. Like Clinton, D 2.4, R9. Jackson, D7, now it's R14. Dubuque went from 11.2 D plus D to 2.7. Since 2020, the Republicans went from a 1% total registration advantage, and this is because a lot of these Democratic zones represent the more urban and populated zones,
Right.
to a Republican plus 10.4% in the 4 years since Trump last won Iowa by like 9 points.
And this
So
kind of goes to the question that Eric's asking in the chat. Do you think the early vote will worsen Trump's chances due to cannibalizing election day votes? Um, no. The information that I've been seeing and everybody's been saying is that a lot of the early vote is actually new voters that were just registered for the Republican Party, especially in Pennsylvania. So I don't expect it to be a lot of cannibalization. And
I
we're
will
seeing
say
a lot of women getting out and voting early. Men are still seemingly holding out and
yeah.
going to vote on election day, is what it looks like.
So there's one state where I can tell you that it probably is going to slightly cannibalize, and that is Nevada, and that's only because Nevada ha, has had early voting in person for so many years that it really we have and you can
It's a
probably
norm there.
yeah, I'll just go ahead and stop sharing and we can take this off the screen. But in it, we have elections and elections worth of data on the early voting versus like who votes. And the difference in Nevada is that everybody Republican has been just smashing it. Like they've been going there. Now his numbers are still up. He's like normally after early voting, the Democrats have a firewall of like 100,000 votes out of Clark County that they need to withstand the onslaught of same day election voting from Republicans, the election day vote. In this case, we are going into Sunday before election day, and the Republicans, and this is by registration data, have
Yeah.
about 44,000 vote lead over Democrats in Nevada. So, and that this is where individual state culture comes in. Like Brahma was talking about, especially older white male voters have a tendency to drape themselves in
The pageantry of
the
election day.
pageantry and tradition of voting on election day. I was someone who always believed in voting on election day up until like the
Me too.
last time and this time. And this time I was like, I'm banking my vote and I'm going to focus on getting other people into this poll. But what we're seeing, and like Brahm was saying, the data out of Pennsylvania, and this is where this whole issue of like the electorate is more female isn't something that's indicative of a problem yet, because women vote early. It's easier to get them to vote early than it is men. And so we don't know they just know that women have made up more voters than men in early voting. There's some states don't give registration data. So I wouldn't be as concerned about that because the women who are we look at election enthusiasm, the people who are motivated to vote are breaking towards Trump by all independent verifiable data. So that part I'm not as worried about.
Bill asked,
Um,
what about Berks County?
do you mean
Major
Bucks? Are we
disenfranchise of
talking
the
about
voters.
is that Bucks County? Are we talking about or Berks? I
I
thought it
think it's
was
Bucks County.
yeah.
in Pennsylvania, where
No,
we've
they
seen the
went to court and
lines.
they won
And
that though.
yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, the Democrats were making fun of Trump for already calling out election shenanigans in Pennsylvania, and then it went to court, and yeah, they had to open up for 2 more days of early voting. Now they did the bare minimum. They staffed those offices with 1 or 2 people and kept them open, which caused ridiculous lines. But I
But
mean,
part of me is also like that's a strategic error on that part because Americans as a cult, like at least people who have engrossed themselves in the American tradition as a cultural, as a culture, we take very great offense to shenanigans. Like traditional American voters don't like the idea of the finger being put on a scale, right? We like to believe in equality of opportunity. When they see stuff on, and it was so heavily publicized, and there was so many videos of it, the lines got longer the next couple days when they reopened it,
yeah,
and there
people made
was
a party out of it.
yeah, and there was anecdotal evidence of people saying I wasn't really that motivated till I saw what they were doing, and then I made sure I got down here to do this. I think that they ended up probably pushing more people into voting for Trump there than they intended than they got by you know restricting it. That's
Yeah,
always a risk, right? If you can't get a, if you like, that's what the stuff in Fulton County that we're hearing about, where they're extending unilaterally the drop off period for ballots,
right,
stuff like that. There's two ways to think about this, and we won't know until they start counting which way it's actually gone. Which is number one, the concern is their ballot stuffing. They're just extending the period so they can stuff more ballots in.
right,
The other way to look at it, and this is also a possibility, is that now that they have all this early voting data to see they are getting just smashed on motivation to vote, especially in urban black communities where the early voting is down doubles of digits, significant numbers compared to 2020, and even down compared to what Hillary was getting out of those communities. They're extending it to try to get one more souls to the polls day to guilt the black community where they're not doing the numbers they feel they should to try to get these ballots in. So we just don't know yet which reasoning it is.
right. Um, Goj had asked a question a little bit earlier. Um, the judge in Arizona absolutely wrecking the Secretary of State over voter shenanigans. Um, I think I know what you're talking about. The list of non-citizens. Um, the Secretary of State having to release the voters whose citizenship hasn't been verified. Is that
I
is that what you
think
think
that's
it
what he's talking.
is? That's the only thing I
That's
know of in Arizona.
Yeah, that's the only one where the Arizona Secretary of State has been getting reamed on things.
Well, and so you've got that going on in Arizona. In Colorado, Jenna Griswold is getting absolutely torn apart. The El Paso County, um, uh, El Paso County released a letter to her demanding a resignation. This has been like 3 major flubs under her, leaving the passwords out this time 5 months ago, and then owning up to it. What, a week ago?
Didn't they
Griswold
just
is
they
insane.
arrested and prosecuted someone in Colorado, right?
Yes, for
Over
releasing passwords.
for doing that because she was doing it to prove that the passwords were out there and easily accessible,
Right.
which
And
we've
she's gone to
confirmed.
jail for what, 9 years, something like that?
Yeah, the judge in there basically said because you used your First Amendment, I'm adding more time. That is going to talk about a ripe for appeal. If you listen to the actual sentencing hearing, the way what the judge said basically gave her immediate grounds for political persecution on First Amendment grounds.
Yep. Well, and Griswold should be forced to resign immediately. This is not the first time something like this has happened. She's also the Secretary of State that decided to try to keep Trump off of the ballots in Colorado. Um, I mean, she's had at least 3 major scandals, and still nothing out of the Democrat Party here. And keep in mind, Colorado is already a state that is easily cheated because of everybody gets a mail-in ballot. It's one of the states where every single person gets a ballot mailed out to them. You can still go vote in person, but you've still got a mail-in ballot that's sitting there. So, um, yeah, Colorado's got to get its crap fixed quick, but it's not going to happen in this election. And we have heard, mumblings that Colorado is moving back a little bit further to the right. I don't expect Colorado is going to do anything in this election. We will probably have Boebert and the guy who's running for her former seat are going to be elected, but outside of that, Colorado is still as pure blue as it comes at the moment. And
I
who
think
knows if that's because of how the elections are done or if it's actually that way.
4 years of like Trump and Vance committed to actually um,
Cleaning up elections.
cleaning up elections and also deporting non-citizens could do a lot to make a lot of like Virginia. I mean, I have a lot of hope that if that stuff happened, Virginia would suddenly look a lot more competitive too, because there's a lot of shady shenanigans in Virginia, especially specifically if people look up Abigail Spanberger out of Congressional District 7, who magically won a couple elections after flash drives of votes were found and she had worked at the CIA. Always makes me, super
Makes you question
confident
it's
that
just
it
a
was
little bit.
legal. Yeah.
Yep.
That seat, by the way, I've talked about. One of the Vinmans is running for that election, and I can only hope that they lose because that'll be my
Is it
happy.
Alex or the other one?
Eugene, I think.
Eugene.
It's the one who didn't testify in Congress.
Is it the one whose wife is a mouthy bitch on Twitter all the
Yes.
time?
Yep.
Okay.
Rachel Vinman is his
Rachel.
wife.
Yeah. But I mean, pointing all these things out, the the thing that's kind of good about this is a the Republicans made a quick move in Pennsylvania, got it before a judge, and got the ruling in place. the The reason we're hearing about all of this as early as we're hearing about it is because people are actually watching, people are paying attention, and Laura Trump and you know the the Republican Party seem to be jumping on things as fast as they're popping up. So even though there are multiple instances that always seem to lean to the left of some crazy fraud going on, they're all over it this time. So I am much more confident that the GOP is going to actually do something if there are shenanigans happening.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with Laura Trump's tact since she's been in there. I know there was a. I think there's something to be said to having a vested interest. I mean, I know some people are like, "Oh, she's just part of the Trump team." So,
It's not just nepotism; she is actually doing the job.
yep.
So
So
that is good. The fact that you can actually wear a Trump hat out into the streets in most places is a big change. Although we did see yet another assault last week where a 60-year-old man decided to beat down somebody just because they were wearing a Trump hat. Keep your head on a swivel if you're going to actually broadcast your support for Trump, I guess is the thing. But I mean, for the most part, I'm getting nods and salutes when I wear it out.
you get the subtle nod.
Yeah.
I mean, I see funny things like there are weird things. Like there's an article in the Daily Mail where they're asking the advice columnist, like, my wife says she's going to withhold relations if I vote for Trump. And in the art what's funny is he's like, I'm absolutely voting for Trump, I just don't know if I should be honest about it with my wife now.
Well, I
So
mean, all the political campaign ads from the Democrats right now are, spouses shouldn't tell the other spouse who they're going to vote for. They should just do it in secret and, keep it hidden and lie to their spouse about who they voted for. So,
in
I mean,
2016, when clearly I voted for Trump, I was all about it. My wife was more hesitant, and I don't blame her. Trump was new to the scene, she wasn't sure. I was like, he'll be fine. And she's like, so I was like, she was asking, I was like, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. You are a grown person who needs to make your own decisions on who to vote for. I was like, but bear in mind, there is one right choice. And if you make the wrong one, I'm going to point it out to you.
For the next 4
Yeah.
years.
I was like, I was like, I'm never going to tell you who you should vote for, but I will tell you why you were wrong if you were wrong about it.
Yeah.
And that's the tactile point. That's how marriage should work. Like you don't make your spouse do anything, but you point out how, and this is true because I can tell you wives do it. They won't make a husband do something, but they sure as heck won't let you forget it if you did something that was against what they thought was appropriate.
Yep. It happens all the time.
I do appreciate like that their ad campaign is aimed squarely at women now. Like, hey, lie to your husbands, vote. It's like if you're in a healthy marriage, your marriage will survive you voting for someone different than what your spouse did. Like, I could make fun of her if she did. I wouldn't divorce her or not love my wife because that's just it. Just speaks to it.
Well, for
Or is
me,
my
I
volume down
never.
again? Did Windows change shit?
Um,
Let me check.
yeah, Deeple's asking if you can boost it just a little bit. But
Fucking
like
Windows. It did it again. All right, there we
my
go.
relationships, I mean, there's not a. I wouldn't have been able to be in a relationship with somebody who had vastly different beliefs than I do. And I think that's most people in the country. I know of a few people that have a marriage where it's, hardcore lefty, hardcore righty, but every one of those that I have known has gotten divorced because they just don't agree on anything. So I mean, you can look at it that way too, but
I look at it as
ultimately,
long-term missionary work. When
right?
I when I married when I got with my wife, she was much more left-wing than I was. And I was fine with it. I'd never like I said, I never did it. What I did is I quietly just made the arguments every time something came up. And eventually I was right. Like in the mid 2000s, I remember having an argument with her. It was about gay marriage. And she's like, but you don't have any problem with gay marriage. Why are you against like doing it? I was like, because they're doing it the wrong way. If they
And the
go to
slippery
any
slope that
it's
comes
like
from it.
if they believe in it at the state level, they should pass state laws that allow for it. If they go to court and they get it mandated, there's a big problem with it. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, if you say that love is love and you should be able to marry who you want, why can't a grown woman marry her father? And she's like, well, that's wrong. And I was like, that's morally wrong. But you just told me that morals can't be used to judge, you know, adult marriages. And she's like, well, that's totally different. I was like, no, 50 years ago, when, they were the same thing morally. Now you're telling me it's different and you're going to court and doing it. I was like, and what's to say if love is love and grown people should be able to marry each other? Why isn't polygamy legal? Why can't more than one person decide they want to be married to each other? And she's like, well, this is just ridiculous. I was like, no, it's the logical
No, it's the
conclusion
slippery slope that we
of
all
when you
can
do
see
it
it
that way.
going down. Yeah.
and and you know what's funny, and she was like that'll and I was like and I said, in a few years they're going to start telling you like you have to accept this or you're going to get fired. And she's like, that'll never happen. Fast forward to 2022 and 2023, and as these stories come out, and I just put them on my screen and I move my phone right in front of her, and she's like, what are you showing me? And I was like, you remember in the when we were talked about this 20 years ago? I'm just, I was right.
Well, and the thing was, my argument was always leave marriage out of it because that's just trying to take, something and make it something else. The civil unions thing would have given all the same rights that we were already talking about, all the same rights that marriage affords a couple. You could have done it through civil unions and not adopted the name marriage there. And I don't think the government has should have anything to do with marriage.
And in fact, civil unions open up a lot of options for, and this is true for like siblings who live with each other, and like they're both in their 60s or 70s or something, maybe their spouses died. A civil union scenario would allow to legally provide for transition of assets, medical decision making. And because in the old, when it was first proposed, civil unions didn't necessarily have to be completely tied to romantic marriage. it was a way to legally provide someone who wasn't a husband or wife all the access to the inherent rights a spouse has in the legal system.
And to be able to go into the hospital room
Yeah.
and make medical decisions, all that kind of stuff. There were already functions of, the law that could have been used to do all of that. It was more a you're going to accept me and then venerate me rather than just, you know, just asking for it was more than asking for just acceptance.
It's
It
funny.
was more you're going to put us on this level.
I was watching for the first time yesterday the original Superman movies with my son.
Hmm.
Yeah, and he liked them. They're great. I love Christopher Reeve Superman movies. They're awesome. But it was funny because when they get to the part with Zod, he's like, "Kneel, you will kneel before me.
Kneel
You will do."
before
And
Zod.
it's 100% that mindset, right? It isn't about having an equal right. It is 100% about making you bow down.
Yeah.
And to this, like, it doesn't. The other stuff doesn't matter. It is a legal struggle session to make you they pardon my language, they get off on the idea of taking someone who has religious values and making them
Yeah.
acknowledge and bow down to it.
And I was struggling for the words, but it went from toleration to acceptance to then elevation. I mean
Correct.
that's kind of the slide that we've seen ourselves on since what 2010
Hmm.
has it been? Yeah. But I mean there were plenty of us that were speaking out about what was going to happen because at this point we're now not just at the grown individuals love is love, but the acceptance of the people who don't even necessarily think that somebody has to be grown for it to be a thing.
Yeah, like when I first heard, I was already annoyed when they introduced like cisgender and all those other terminology, but it was an Old Dominion University professor out of Virginia. It was when I first heard like academics using that minor attracted
The
persons.
maps, yeah.
And I was like, "What in the fuck? why?
Hmm.
Why are you like? We don't. We need to destigmatize pedophiles." Is like, no, no,
No,
we
we
do
don't.
not. Like, was it like the JD Vance? I reject the premise that you are putting forward. We do not need to do this.
Yeah,
And that's why I think it's funny, like when they're like, "Oh, how do they keep accusing us of just going after children?" I was like, "Because you keep going after children." It's like,
because we're watching you do it.
yeah,
And that's kind of where the overlap with somebody like me and, this little corner of YouTube, that we've all found ourselves in as kind of overlapped is the Disney stuff and all that stuff. I mean, that's where we're seeing the grooming. I may not like the Disney shows that are coming out and all that stuff, and we may talk about all the problems with that, but it's more the political push that companies like Disney and BlackRock and all of those companies are doing is how I kind of got sucked into this area. But because I was always more political than I was on the entertainment side of things.
I know it's. I know we've kind of gone on a little tangent, but this is kind of going back to kind of putting in perspective why you need to get out and vote and why this does matter because and this has come up as a point of debate in the since Rogan, since Vance was on Rogan's interview with. I know there's some people who are unhappy with what they perceive as criticism of Ronald Reagan, specifically in some of with immigration
Hmm.
and the point Vance made about permanently effectively turning California blue
Yeah, the
through his
amnesty.
amnesty policies. And this is why you have to kind of talk about this stuff because these aren't small matters. They're not, Virginia went from a ruby red state to a blue state in one election once they had enough immigration in place.
Colorado, pretty similar. It
Yeah.
was immigration and it was pot. As the
Yep.
first state to legalize pot, people flocked to Colorado and completely changed it because in my childhood we were red, then we were purple just for a cycle or two, and then after the pot thing we were as blue as it gets. And it's really just the big cities outside of Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs and El Paso County are still ruby red for the most part, and that's because we've got just about every major religious organization is based out of Colorado Springs. Focus on the Family, Compassion International, all those are here. So that tends to keep it red, along with the amount of military that we've got here. Because as much as the upper brass of military seems to be, completely crazy at all times, the boots on the ground guys are typically more like us, I think, from all the ones that I meet, all the ones that I talk to, all of my son-in-law's friends, all that kind of stuff. And they're not going to they're not going to accept what a lot of the military leadership puts forward as the way things should be going. They're not real happy with all of the transitioners that are in the military, and the just everything that the military has been putting out there as far as their ads and all that kind of stuff. Cross dressing, you know, that's not who the military actually is.
So this is an interesting point. It went blue for immigration, but Arizona is somehow trending back. This is a function of net migration out of blue states. What
Hmm.
we've seen is migration used to be for economic reasons mostly, but at least in post Trump, a lot of my net migration is political. Florida is up. Florida's getting redder because it is attracting red refugees.
Yep.
Arizona is actually getting redder because now the people leaving California are expressly leaving it because of the politics
Yeah.
that's
Look at
happening.
Gary.
I yeah, I saw studies that Texas, the holy grail of the Democratic Party, which is turning Texas blue, that the reason Texas hasn't turned blue yet is because of net migration in from blue refugees. Basically, that's Republicans and conservatives moving into Texas specifically to seek political home, in a state. And so the new migrants are voting so strongly Republican that it is keeping at bay the movement from like Houston and Austin and some of the and Dallas trying to move Texas blue. So that old theory that bring your leave your California politics in California, or
Hmm.
don't California my Texas, like that's actually happening where the people now moving, the immigration from the state is actually reinforcing red. Now, what you need to do once you're a red state and you have a legislature and you have a governorship is put in place election protection, put in place red, run your state like a red state so that people who are blue leave and people who are red come in. You fortify your state. Fortify is a nice word we like to
Yep.
hear, right? So you can see the way DeSantis, like Rick Scott and then DeSantis in turn in Florida, have done a lot to fortify Florida. And shockingly, it started with Jeb Bush when he put in some election reforms after 2000, since they were so embarrassed, with
Yeah.
the debacle. But that's what you can't be willy nilly. And I do worry.
It
Texas
is
has a
it
lot
is
of.
hilarious that there are actual people on Twitter, on blue Twitter, that think that Florida is going to flip in this election.
I mean, I guess it's the same people who buy the Iowa poll, uh,
Right.
which
I mean, we've tried to be as realistic as possible. I do think that the Rust Belt is going to turn pretty hard red, but not necessarily all of them. And I think there's chances in certain states. I'm not going to say that Colorado is going to flip. I'm not going to even say that New Mexico is going to flip. I mean, that's kind of insanity at this point to think of, those kinds of states. I mean, there are some states that have waffled in the past few election cycles, and we're seeing them turning a little bit more to the right again, and that's that's an election cycle. That's not turning the state absolutely red in any way. I mean, in Pennsylvania, I think we're going to see it go red, but I mean, you still have Fetterman and you still have Shapiro there. I mean, it's still a blue state for the most part. The fact that people are upset and willing to vote in the presidential cycle for somebody that they think is going to fix things is encouraging. But I mean, saying that Florida is going to flip blue or Texas is going to flip blue is, in my opinion, insanity at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It would defy. I mean, it defies the voting data we have. It defies the previous elections we're in, where
Yeah,
Trump was in. There's no reason to legitimately believe that Kamala Harris would somehow have more pull in Florida than Biden did against Trump.
right.
And if Biden didn't beat him in Florida, and Florida's only gotten redder looking at DeSantis's reelection, why are like look at the voter registration is not necessarily predictive guaranteed. What is it, what's the old phrasing? You can't show causation, but you can sure as heck show correlation. And voter registration is the strongest correlation to outcome that we have in politics. If
Yeah,
your voter registration data is moving in one direction consistently, which in Florida, Pennsylvania, all these states has been moving Republican by hundreds of thousands of votes between cycles,
and
you are
really,
not
in
going.
in history, it's the economy, stupid. And what have we seen with this economy? It's as bad as it's been since Carter.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, if that still holds true, then yeah, you're going to see people vote against the economy that we have right now. And the lies
and
about what's going on in the economy are not going to, they're not holding up. You're seeing every jobs data report being, you know, pushed in the other direction just a couple months after it comes out, saying that they've come up with, this many million jobs or this many hundreds of thousands of jobs. And
yeah,
we've
they
had
do
it
the
revised
downward
down
revisions.
800,000.
Yeah, and if you look at since Biden's been in office, the only areas of growth consistent as an industry are government.
Government.
Government's the only area with positive job growth, and the even the other areas, the hiring has been net migrant, not American citizen. American citizens are down jobs since Biden's been in office. Migrants are up. That I mean, that is also within the Bureau of Labor Statistics data. So, which is funny because one of the things that showed me that Ann Seltzer Iowa poll was bullshit was the number one thing for voters. The number one, issue was democracy, and that's not true in any poll in the entire United States. But it would be true if you were oversampling, the wrong type of
Yeah.
voter. Like, the economy and inflation were issue like 6 and 7. I was
Which
like,
is
oh no.
insane.
Yeah. There's no poll that has those things at 6 and 7.
Well, and the other things you can look at is crime. I mean, they will tell you over and over and over, crime's down, crime's down. Well, when you're not reporting any of the crime anymore, then I mean, there's two things. There's not reporting the crime, and there's the fact that all these Soros prosecutors will not prosecute crime. So yeah, your numbers are going to show down if you're not going to actually report the actual numbers, or if you're not going to prosecute actual criminals. I mean, but everybody can see it. You can use your own eyes and see what's going on in this country. So they're not going to be able to, talk their way out of this economy or the state of the country right now. I mean, that's what was brilliant in both of the debates about bringing attention to, say, the Haitian migrants, that kind of stuff. I mean, sure, it may have been, a little bit bombastic in the way that it was brought up, but then it got eyes, it got everybody to start looking at it. It got the news to actually start reporting a little bit on it, and it got people on the ground to start saying things on Twitter and everywhere else. I mean, at this point, I don't really watch the news anymore so much as get it from Twitter, because half the time you've got video evidence on Twitter. With the news, most of the time they're just talking about it without actually having anything to back it up.
Yeah, it is a interesting interesting situation.
Well, and that's where YouTube is also becoming a source of news. Um,
which is why
We
the New
we
York
definitely
Times
don't
went
claim to be
so.
journalists or
No,
anything. We're not
n-
doing any
no,
investigative
we are
reporting.
we
We
are openly opinionated towards a direction, and
Yeah,
that's fine. I don't mind when people are open about what they're doing. It's when you try to pretend you're a non-biased. Like I've brought it up so many times. Friggin' the idea that George Stephanopoulos and Jake Tapper put themselves out there as like
as
objective news
journalists.
anchors. It was like George
Yeah,
Stephanopoulos was the lead communications director for the fucking Bill Clinton campaign in 92 and worked in his White House for years.
yeah,
And you want me to think he's an independent broker? Sorry.
yeah.
No.
Don't buy it.
But we're also more in tuned and know, like, when's the last time the anybody in the media has like openly mentioned their background so people were aware of it? They don't. Like,
Well, um, nobody that's in the news now, but you've got plenty of people that have left the news and started doing their own podcast or YouTube. I mean, Megan Kelly, Tucker Carlson. Um, there's quite a few that have gotten out of the mainstream, and they'll tell you exactly what they feel now because they're
and they're
not being
actually
told what to say anymore.
and they're better off financially for it. They seem
Yeah,
to be making good money. They're getting an audience that is responsible. I mean, it's the Joe Rogan scenario, right? If you've
yep.
got that, if you can pull it off. The problem for a lot of the news media people is they're not engaging enough to actually get people to watch based on their own work. They need to have the news, the I guess the network directing people to watch them. Like
Well, and
it's
they read what they're told. They don't necessarily do their own stories. They read what's put on the prompter. For the news people specifically, for the opinion people on the news, yeah, they probably look into stuff much like we do. Um, but on so Fox News, everybody knows Greg Gutfeld, Jesse Waters, those types are opinion. They're not claiming to be journalists in any way. The difference is the the left will try to claim that Rachel Maddow is a journalist. She's an opinion reporter. That's all she's doing is giving her opinion, just like we do, just like the people on Fox. But there is a certain segment of the population in this country that considers them the news, like they are actual journalists, and don't look at it as opinion. They look at it as actual news reporting. And I mean, that's the big difference is understanding the difference between opinion and journalism.
yeah. I don't. I know that like journalism is supposed to be like this professional or like job that you have an ethical code of conduct for, but it's never worked that way.
No.
It's I mean, I know they put the guise of journalism schools and learning ethical journalism and how for years it was like we needed two sources to independently do till Trump was in, and then all of a
And
sudden it's
not
like,
anonymous.
yeah, one anonymous source is a-okay for this story.
Yeah.
Oh, we have six other people in the room who say it didn't happen. Yeah, but we have one who said it did.
Yeah.
Are they on the record? No, they're
No.
anonymous. We're publishing it.
Yep.
So
Or well, even if they're not anonymous, like the Kelly thing. It's like, okay, but you've got everybody else said no, it never happened on multiple stories that have been reported about him.
I still think
And
Kelly was
he's a
being too cute by
disgruntled
FF.
employee that got fired. You think what?
I still think he was being cutesy because, like I said, I personally know John Kelly. I knew his son who passed away in combat. He was a good guy at the time. This was mid late 90s.
Yeah.
He was not a general, obviously, at that time. I think he's disgruntled and has his own motivations for doing things at this point. And I think if you parse the words, he's very the way he does it gives himself like he conflates things. Like he talks about like the whole suckers and losers lie is
Right.
because I guarantee you 100% Trump probably called John McCain and George Herbert Walker Bush suckers and losers.
Yeah, I
And
wouldn't doubt
then
that.
yeah, and then Trump probably was, and So the way Kelly gave his quotes is he conflated that line. Like, I don't like the way that he would talk about soldiers or
Right.
people who served. And for Kelly, he's not lying because John McCain and George H.W. Bush served. And so that would mean that's a way that was Trump talking about people who served. But no, Trump was talking about specific people and the way they were in, politics and their actions.
Yeah.
Service is great. I believe in honoring service, but service doesn't give you a pass for doing things the rest of your life.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah, and that kind of leads us to the other thing that happened this week with the whole Liz Cheney debacle. Have you ever? I mean, we know the media lies, but have you ever see it be that blatant before? I mean,
not when it's
besides
really
maybe very fine people, because we have video of that too, and they just clipped it the way they wanted to. But the whole Liz Cheney thing was absolutely insane this week.
what's really worse is that the clip is only like 10 seconds long when you play the whole clip. So they can't even argue that they were doing it for time or that he was rambling.
Right?
You can play 10 seconds and get the whole context where he's talking about them being warmongers, or you play a 6-second version of the clip. There's no
Where
you
you
can't
have
even
Liz
really
Cheney in front of a firing squad.
yeah, there's no you can't even make the reasonable, well, we had to edit it down for time. What, 10 seconds
You
versus
can't
6?
even make it sound reasonable the way they edited it, though, because if you were putting her in front of a firing squad, why would you arm her first? Because he
Exactly.
said, give her a
Her
gun and
gun.
have nine guns pointed at her. Why would you give somebody a gun if they were supposedly being set to execution by firing squad? It doesn't even make sense in the context that they did clip it into. But absolutely, if you take the whole clip, he doesn't say anything near that. And even on Twitter, like I'm in the community notes program, we were trying to get the community notes on that all day yesterday, and nothing. Uh, we got voted down every single time we tried to put a note on it. And it's like, we literally have the clip. And it's
How
like,
could
well,
that be not community noted? Yeah, that's
because because in the clip that was released, which is what you're arguing against, it does say what it says, so that we just got voted down. Plus, we've seen that they've got that Kamala's they've mobilized everything on community notes and Reddit. So in Reddit and in Discord, they've got thousands and thousands of fact checkers ready to go to vote down anything that is coming from the right. So you write a note, it gets voted down immediately by thousands of people. I mean, they've definitely got everything mobilized against anything on Twitter that might actually show a right leaning opinion. And that's why we can't get any of the notes on there. I mean, I got multiple tweets yesterday. How have you guys not community noted this? And it's like, we're trying. We can't. We don't have the numbers of people that are actively in there just rating up notes. So
those
it's
Chinese bot
crazy.
armies can do a lot of damage.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that happens, so in the program, if I vote a note down and then the note goes up, my rating goes down. So they're also killing all of our ratings by putting up notes that we have voted down, and it gets upvoted enough that it becomes the note on there. So if you were against it, then your note rating goes down. So you have less say. Or at least that's the way I understand it. Because I mean, I'm not anything crazy on Twitter. I do try to upvote and downvote the notes that seem to make no sense, but I don't even know how I got into the program. I just got a thing that said, "Hey, we want you to be a community noter." I was like, "Okay." So, and I think Mad got the same thing. So, Mad's a community noter as well. But yeah, it's crazy. So,
That doesn't make me have more faith in the program.
right.
Although Mad can work those overnight and late night hour shifts.
Yeah.
It's like no one else is manning the board. We got a guy.
We got a guy.
All
We got
right,
a good guy for it.
I did see a chat about our predictions. Did we want to go into that, or we want
Yeah,
to?
we
Yep,
can do that now.
because I have the map I've made right here.
I think our map is pretty similar.
Yep,
So let me add this and transition it real quick.
sure.
Okay.
All right, so I see it as it is right now, and this is going to my personal thought process: 302 to 236, with Pennsylvania being stronger than Michigan in terms of wins for Trump, Michigan being closer, and that Wisconsin gets pulled out for Harris, but they lose Nevada. And so he ends up, and then he sweeps North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, the Sun Belt ones. So I see it at 302. I don't think he pulls off Nebraska too, and I don't think he takes Maine as a whole. And I think New Hampshire and Virginia, I would change Virginia probably to a leans because it's getting a little more competitive, and New Hampshire to a leans, but I don't think they're actually going to lose those ones.
Yeah, I'm not sure on Virginia, but my map does have Wisconsin going slightly red. So I've got 312 for Trump. But
So your
we could
version
play
would
through.
be, yeah,
Yeah, I've got
would basically
leans
move that
Republican
in.
on
Yep.
Wisconsin. Yep. Everything else I've got the same.
Yeah, because I think Nevada is going to end up being solid, which is the likely. I think Pennsylvania is solid, which is likely.
Pressler has done amazing things in Pennsylvania, and I think that's Pressler may be the reason we win this election. Scott
Yeah,
Pressler getting everybody out there um, registered to vote in Pennsylvania. So we did get a Rumble rant from Deeple for $1. How do you request for a community note on X? I tend to rate the notes when I see it. I think on if you're on Twitter, there's the three dots up in the upper right. I think you can request a community note there, and then it'll go into the program. And also, we had Boosh McFadden become a member on the YouTube side because we have memberships now.
yeah. I see Southern Belle saying she moved staff from North Carolina and put them into Virginia. I think that is because if they lose Virginia, they actually lose. I mean,
Well, they pulled
losing
2 million
Virginia,
in ads out
yeah,
of North Carolina into Virginia as well, not
like
just staff.
That's another Roanoke Univer or somebody just dropped a new poll in Virginia where they had Kamala up by 10, and that poll coincided with Kamala moving staff and dollars out of North Carolina into Virginia, and that's ridiculous. So that she's not up 10. If
Yeah,
she
this
wins
was not an
Virginia,
offensive play. This
yeah,
was defense. They know
if
North
she,
Carolina's gone. They're
let's
not.
Kamala winning Virginia by anything less than 5 is a major red flag problem for them. So, you know, the thing is, she's focused. There is a path if she loses North Carolina to her still winning, which would be
Ultimately, she's got to win multiple states. Trump needs to win
she's
about
got to
one.
pull, if she pulls the sweep of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin,
She's still
that's
down.
she's at 270 even with losing Nevada. So
Yep.
she wins. The problem is if you lose Virginia, it doesn't matter if you sweep your blue state wall. You still lose. This, by the way, is the map. This is what I like to call the W2004 map.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this is what he won 281 in 2004. So
And Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen keeps saying he's seeing a 1980 map.
it's, I mean, what he's, so his scenario is would the this would be what he's talking about. This would be everything breaking his way. We'd be talking this is so under his scenario, which is a 333 type map.
Yep.
Nebraska 2 goes red, Maine, all of Maine
All of
goes
Maine,
red.
New Hampshire.
Not just Maine 2, but Maine 1, and then he wins the popular vote in the state. He gets New Hampshire. He also gets Virginia. This is the maximum he could win. And here's why. The left coast here,
Not gonna
even
change.
it's not moving. New Mexico, no. It's
Nope.
it's a pipe dream. It could, but not likely. It's, Colorado, like you pointed out, the Secretary of State has already made sure and
She's already screwing with
yeah.
things left and right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's probably there. Minnesota, I know that people want to put that in there, but I don't. The best case scenario under the 1980 style is Minnesota goes leans, which means they win within 3 points.
Yeah.
But New Hampshire, the problem with New Hampshire, you know about New Hampshire's voter registration rules, right? They have same day voter registration and they have a
Right.
super lax residency
Restrictions.
requirement.
Yeah.
So what happens in New Hampshire is people from Massachusetts right here bus in and vote in the New Hampshire election. It's a problem. They know about it. It came up a lot, and when Scott Brown was running for senator in New Hampshire,
Hmm.
they bust in people from Massachusetts because he was going to win, and so they do that. So Trump going to Salem, Virginia, really upset progressives. I didn't think he went to Salem. I thought he went to Roanoke,
I'm not sure,
but
but he is going to over these last 2 days. He's going to what Virginia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Is I think he's got like four four rallies a day scheduled yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So that's where they're seeing the push. Um, the things that we
so
have heard about the Democrat internals is that they already know they're cooked.
yeah. To answer Eric's question, in a rosy 1980, like people are that fed up, Maine is actually a state that could be in play. It's a small state, so its shifts could be. It doesn't have. You shift one congressional district, which in Maine is probably a function of maybe 20, 30,000 votes. You can flip the state.
Yeah,
It, it's
that's where economy comes in.
it's just a matter of what people are comfortable saying versus what what they would. I don't think it's going to be. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
neither do I. I think that the 312 is the most likely or not maybe the most likely scenario. That is the most likely landslide scenario for him. The 302 is probably where you were at. Is
Yeah.
probably what's going to happen. I would love to see the 312. I would love to see um, the 325 even more because then you're getting into mandate world, especially. Well, I mean, we're going to go into the rest of it, and we're running out of time. But the Senate, me and you were both thinking what 53, 54 seats.
So I think I'm feeling pretty bullish about Nevada now. I think because of the voting data we have,
Yeah,
I I know that people keep talking about ticket splitting. It doesn't really happen
not as
in
much as they're trying to say it does.
not the
Yeah,
way that people outside where ticket splitting happens is somebody like John McCain's on the election ballot in Arizona during an Obama election. Like
yeah,
John
where you've
McCain
got
would
a
still
solid
exactly.
incumbent.
Or if you were as Slender, my West Virginia resident friend knows, when Joe Manchin was still on the ticket, he managed to sneak by. You know, so and that was in 2018, so it was off presidential year. He would have been toasted if it was presidential year. This is that's where you can do it. But so I see Brown. So we're picking up West Virginia. That's one. So that's one. I think we're likely to pick up Ohio. That's two. We're likely to pick up Nebraska with Tester losing. That's three.
Montana.
Or Montana. Yeah, Montana. Then Nevada, I think Brown wins there. So that's four. What would that get us to? It's a 50-50 Senate right now.
Um, well, ultimately, the Republicans have 46 safe or no runs. The Democrats have 39 safe or no runs. So, yeah, the Democrats have 5 that are leans or likely. So that has them at 44 starting. The Republicans had 46 with 5 leans or likely on the election map. So they're starting at 51.
That is, yeah.
So any of
That
those pickups is going to be, I mean, really, the Republicans from the start are going to have the 51 because
because as soon as they
you're
pick up West
automatically
Virginia,
doing West Virginia, and then if you bring in Montana and Nevada, Montana's very likely. Um, Nevada, you're bullish on it. I think I am too, but I mean that gets you to what 53 there. So yeah, I'm thinking 53, 54 seats.
which is important because that way, when Mitt Romney decides he wants to jam up some, Trump appointees if he wins.
Right. Because right now, Michigan, the polling's a tie. Nevada is D plus 4, but I think that's come way down since I was looking at those numbers last week. And that was the one where the Democrats had the biggest lead out of the toss ups, is Nevada. Ohio was Republican plus 1. Pennsylvania was a tie. Wisconsin was a D plus 3. I don't think we're going to get Wisconsin. I think we do get Pennsylvania. I think we do get Nevada and likely Ohio, I think.
Yeah, Ohio is Sherrod Brown, so I think he's toast. He's been raising the alarm signals for months that, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so that gets us 53, 54, somewhere in
Yeah.
there.
There's no scenario this election, even on the, like, in a 1980 scenario, like he's talking about, where Trump in 1980, you're just looking at Michigan, Pennsylvania would all like be this darker red. They all have Senate elections, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. And right now, I don't think, I think Pennsylvania is the best chance at a pickup, followed by Michigan, then Wisconsin's more the outside chance. But in the 1980, like Trump has coattail scenario, they get all three of these.
Possibly.
I Well, that's if that I'm saying if that is, if the Rasmussen
Yeah, if we
prediction, that's what, if you're looking at Rasmussen, that would also mean, yeah, I mean, under, again, this is when we're talking 1980, like Carter getting wiped out scenario. Reagan picked up the Senate that year for the Republicans, and that would also mean Virginia would turn red, go to Trump, and he would probably pull Hung Cow over the line and get rid of Tim Kaine.
which is where people are asking him to focus is to try to get that Senate seat.
I
And I've
know.
seen a lot of people saying, get out of the states that we think are pretty much locked up and get into Virginia. Did want to bring up this one real quick. David P for $5. Thank you, sir. Thanks for putting up your election map predictions. Yep, that was the plan for a good portion of the show today. Just election preview, and then of course we'll be doing the election night coverage. So come check that one out. We've got a ton of guests, so should be a fun night, hopefully. But yeah, I get what you're saying too, Eric. Overconfidence. I mean, we're just calling what we see, and the thing is, everybody still has to vote. Get out there and do it. But I mean, don't want to be blackpilled before the election. I mean, we'll see what happens on election night, but I mean, this is kind of what we're seeing in the polling. This is what we've been talking about behind the scenes, and um, there is reason to be optimistic, and there's reason to look at the Harris campaign and the decisions they're making to say that they are panicking right now.
Yeah, I mean, if the idea of in 2024 of a Democrat having to defend Virginia is a big problem. So
Yeah, there's major flashing red lights, red red signs saying, uh, yeah, they know they're in trouble. And remember, this is a candidate who hasn't gotten a vote, has never run against a Republican as the head of a ticket. In California, she won elections, but in California, you win elections against another Democrat. You don't win elections against a Republican in a
yes,
statewide race.
California has what's called a jungle primary. It is one of the. I mean, it's
The top
silly.
two vote getters
In
go
the
on.
Yeah, so in the primary, it doesn't matter what political affiliation you are. There, in theory, the logic is that if the Republicans would be, they should be the number two in a primary, and for the most part, in a lot of parts of California, they are. But overall, like when it's a statewide office, you end up usually running against like two Democrats. Now, in this case, this last primary, when Schiff won and became the Democratic nominee, we did get a Republican because there were so many Democrats who wanted to be the new senator because they know if they won the got in, they would be senator. That the Republican had enough consolidated votes to be the secondary person.
Yeah. Eric asked about Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake is polling from what I had seen, she's pulling well behind Trump in Arizona. That could be where you get a split. What are you thinking on it?
I don't know because that's the thing.
Because
Like,
she's pulling multiple points behind Trump, and we think Arizona is definitely going to go red, but I don't know that Carrie Lake is liked as much as Trump is, which is kind of weird because she's a very Trump candidate for Senate out there.
yeah, Carrie's a weird case. And I also don't know how much Gallego's divorce records being unsealed affects things because he did have a lot of weird stuff come out in that with cartel connections for money, leaving his pregnant wife for another woman. I mean, none of this stuff should help him with some of the voters who may be conservative but might be turned off by Carrie Lake's demeanor.
Yeah.
So
See, the
Arizona's
thing
got
that's
too
making
many
her different,
McCain people.
yeah, the thing that's making her different from Trump in Arizona is Trump. He's been running a campaign for 2 years, right? 2 years ago, when he started the campaign, he was still talking about the unfair election from 2020. He has stopped doing that. You don't hear him mention it very much at all. Other people bring it up to him, and he kind of glosses over the whole thing. He's not constantly talking about the last election. Carrie Lake has continued to do it nonstop, and I think that's what's turning people off on Lake. That, I mean, we may agree with her, but I'm not sure that people like that she's still on about the shenanigans from the last election. And I think that's where you're seeing the difference in the polling on the two. Trump may have the coattails to pull her in, but I'm not sure.
And like you said, that's where the ticket splitting part comes in. And Arizona's just like there's a lot of stuff where you don't want to say it, but Arizona's like its own little animal that's very unique. And the
Yeah,
stuff that generally applies in most other states, Arizona's totally out of whack on because they got weird like mix of retirees who are generally conservative but are McCaney conservative, so they don't like Carrie Lake. And and Gallego tries to put himself out there as a moderate. Like the benefit to Carrie Lake is that if she was up against Kelly, she'd be toast. Like
yeah,
Kelly is a perfect chameleon. He's very Obama like in that he doesn't actually say or do anything that makes people feel offended, but he's actually pretty liberal once he's voting, but no one seems to ever pay attention to that.
Nobody holds him to account for it.
Yeah, he just goes up there, and I'm like, I was an astronaut. Who wants to talk to me about being an astronaut? So
Yeah.
now the other hand is the Arizona had a unique bit of issues in 2020 and 2022 with their elections, and people are paying super close scrutiny to it. And can you get there's being able to cheat, and then there's being able to cheat in broad daylight with eyes on you, right? Sunlight is the
Yeah.
best disinfectant. Do they have do they think they have the capability to get away with it with this many eyes watching them? That's the question.
Right. Like we were talking about earlier, Laura and the GOP they're taking it much more seriously this go around. So there is a good chance that if shenanigans are happening, that it's going to get called out in real time. Um, Other people are also taking it more serious. I mean, Crowder has people on the ground in a lot of the states where there's been issues in the past, and uh, Lily of the Fox Valley said she got cheated. That's why. That's true, and I agree. But a lot of people want you to they want Carrie Lake to live in the now, not keep prosecuting the last election. Because to win this election, she needs to be talking about what she's doing now, and she does do that. But the news doesn't tend to um, highlight that as much because they're more likely to highlight her talking about the past elections.
Because they know that turns people off. And
Yeah,
it's a good
and they finally got Trump off of that, and that's where Trump started turning around.
because we are I mean, if you guys who are in our audience are more plugged in, you've probably paid attention to it more. You may have been more offended by what happened on a fundamental level. The average voter isn't. I mean, it works for us the same way too. The average voter doesn't give a shit about January 6th. And so when the Democrats go out there and they start trying to like plug that, people are like, no. That's it's Kamala keeps going back to that just like Biden did, and it's the worst argument they can make because the average voters don't give a shit about it. But on the same side, on our side, the average voter doesn't really care about what they, about you crying about election shenanigans, right? So you want to fix it, you've got to address it, but you also can't make it the only thing you talk about constantly.
Yeah,
So it's it's just something you got to walk that line because you don't want to let it go because it is important, but you also want to speak a message. That's why I do like JD Vance. I think he's really effective at communicating in that way. When they keep trying to pin him down on, you know, January 6th and democracy and the election, he'll start bringing up like that's when he'll bring up, well, let's talk about this and that and the other, and
yeah,
then they immediately want to shift the question again because they don't want to answer, they don't want to talk about those things. So I mean, that's another point in JD Vance's favor. I know some people are still not the biggest fan of him. I think under Trump's tutelage, he'll be fine. That's my educated wish, to quote Deadpool.
yeah. I think
That
we'll see a lot of JD Vance over the next few years because I think Trump will always stop in front of a camera and talk. JD Vance will be the effective communicator in the White House, though, because he's just much better at staying on a topic and making a point.
yeah, he is.
What are you thinking on the House? Because I haven't gotten to look at the House as near as much.
I mean, that's where the 1980 scenario. All right, my prediction on the House is that we end up netting probably about 6 or 7, maybe 8 on the outside seats.
Yeah,
That means we hold most of what we had, we regain, and then again, by net I mean also regaining the ones that we like, the George Santos type seats, that we already did have.
right,
So net gain for me means that we'll be in the upper 220s for Republican congressmen. Under a 1980 type sweep scenario, you're now talking more like 235 to 240 seats. That would pull lots of seats into the Republican field that would normally be there. My prediction is more like 225 to 228 would be the end spot for Republicans in the House.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're optimistic in a sweep of sorts. We think we'll have the Senate, the House, and the presidency. But again, go out and vote if you haven't. I know Lily said Tuesday works best for her, so she's going to go vote Tuesday. Great. But if you can vote early because we
Mm.
need every vote just to make sure that it's too big to rig. And then, of course, we'll
Exactly.
be here Tuesday night for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, that's like let's talk about that stream. It's gonna be awesome. Who do we
Yeah,
got lined up on our mega election stream, Brahma?
let me bring it up. It'll take just a second because I didn't have it queued up. So, I mean, of course, we'll be here. We will have it's going to be co-hosted with Comics Division. We're going to have Carrie Smith is also going to broadcast it. So those are we're that's the four of us that are going to be the hosts. And let me see if I can bring up the rest of the list real quick. Give me just a moment because I've got our shiny thumbnail thanks to Release the McCracken and his meme that he put out last week. So we've got me, Little Chad, Comics Division, Carrie Smith, Culture Casino, Slender Dad, Brandon Morse of Red State, Mad Cheesemo, 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser, Mike Harlow. The Shagsworth said he's likely to stop by um, if he does get a little bit of time. Krigler, if he can stay awake, said he would pop in for a little bit. And Brian Gropner, who is a member of a industrial band that he's friends with Comics Division, I guess. So he's going to be there. Then we'll have a few more people possibly dropping by. I know there are a lot of streams and a lot of people are committed to a lot of different places. George Molo said that he might stop by if he's able to. He is already going to be on another stream, but so George the Giant Slayer will probably stop in for a little bit. You may see some more of the Dix division stopping in, um, and yeah, we'll we'll be a pretty full panel all evening, and I don't know how long that evening is going to go. It's going to be there are some scenarios of we could see a few key states fall early, and that there's no point in holding up the election if they were trying to pull any shenanigans if those key states fall early, because it'll essentially be over at that point. So we could see a president on Tuesday night. Um, we
If
could be going into two or
if
three in the
Rasmussen
morning.
is right and it's a 1980 scenario, you'll know by around 10 o'clock, because if it's swinging that wild, that big, it'll be known by like around 10, 10, 15. So like you said, the big, Virginia would be known
If
because
Virginia
Virginia
and
counts.
Pennsylvania, if the numbers are overwhelming there, it's done.
Yep. And like you said, at that point, it's going to be any shenanigans they make are going to be focused on the House. They're going to be like, we can't afford to put in. That's when you'll get suddenly 120,000 ballots that only have a congressman filled out dropping.
Right. Yeah, I think we'll be up till probably 2 a.m. But that may be celebrating, or it may be again asking what the hell is going on. So it's going to be an interesting night. I'm not sure exactly how to think it's going to play out, but we're going to try to stay up as late as we can to see if we can get answers. My hope is that we end up seeing that scenario where those states fall early, and we don't have to be too worried all night. We'll probably do some stream sniping, maybe check out what the Young Turks are saying. We'll
Yeah, I'm
definitely
interested to see if Cenk is going to try to knife Anna on the set.
right. See if they have their meltdown again. David, we are starting at what did we decide? 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah,
So
8 p.m. Eastern.
6 o'clock Mountain and 7 o'clock Central. So that's about an hour after the first polls close in the East Coast. So we'll already have some stuff already decided, maybe, and that way we can not sit there and wait for polls to close to have something to talk about. We'll get going about an hour after the initial polls close, and we'll start having some results already coming in. And I think that's about when everybody else's streams are supposed to start too. So um, we just ask that you drop by, hang out for as much as you want. Definitely be watching everybody else's coverage. Let us know what's going on and what everybody else is saying as well. And hopefully we have a fun night. Let's see. Good start time. Yep. And what else we got going on? You got anything else this week?
I think the election stream is taking over our normal gaming stream night. So
Yep.
the next thing after that is just the Ascendant Art podcast on Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, where if people could subscribe and watch that one, that'd be great too.
Yep. Ascendant Art Ascendant Art does need some subs to get them over the monetization hump. So if you guys could go over there and give Chad a sub on his main channel, that'd be fantastic. Um, maybe we'll do a membership drive on Tuesday night too. We'll make Tuesday night as the election stream, but it'll also be probably the closest thing we get to a monetization celebration stream for my channel, just because I'm on something every night, so it's very hard to figure out a time when I can do a celebration stream and have people. So that's kind of what's going on. Of course, the other thing we can talk about on Tuesday night is what what do we anticipate is going to happen depending on who does win the election, because I think we'll see a lot of blue cities boarding up like they did in 2020 in anticipation that Trump is going to win, and you don't see that happening um, when the Democrat is projected to win. You see it when it's projected that Trump is going to win, that cities will burn. So
My main concern is actually not so much cities burning and all that stuff. It's going to be from November, what is it, 4th, 5th? November
November to
6th
January.
to January. Like, what shit's going to pop off? Like, is Biden and not, I shouldn't say Biden, is whoever is guiding the autopilot wheel of the, USS America going to decide we need to have a full scale war in the Middle East with Iran before Trump takes office? Is China going to try to take Taiwan before Trump gets in office? Like, what is that little window is going to be the most in, may you live in interesting times kind of scenario. Like, what will people try to do before Trump's actually in?
Yeah, it's. I think he needs to hunker down in Mar-a-Lago, make statements from Mar-a-Lago, turn it into a second White House until he's actually in, because I don't want him on the road anymore. If he does win, do not want to see anything happen. And on the decertification thing, I mean, a lot of people have talked about that. I mean, you're you're already going to have. I mean, it's not a scenario I see playing out in any case. I know Raskin has talked about it. People really want to see Hakeem Jeffries taking over, but at the moment, the government's just not set up for anything like that to be happening. Um,
The interesting thing about the decertification situation is that's exactly what they have been trying to arrest Trump for the last 4 years.
right.
So if they engage in that, it does. I mean, not that they. I mean, this is Democratic Party. I wouldn't put it past
They've
them.
engaged in it in every single
Yeah,
election
but
since
it would be
2000.
interesting that doing exactly what the Republicans and Trump were advocating for in 2020, but them trying to pull it off in 2024 is somehow different.
Yeah.
So the
Well,
difference
and
is
I
they'll
can't
live.
remember the order of things. Is the new Congress certified
Yes,
before the
the
election?
new Congress is seated,
So in that
and
case, if everything plays out the way we're saying, the Democrats won't have any power to try to do anything, because it'll be a majority for both in both the Senate and the House.
All right,
So
there is one scenario, and this is crazy wild to put out, but in theory, if Trump wins and the Republican establishment is very unhappy with it, before the new Congress comes in, where they have more probably Trumpy congressmen coming in, we have a couple more retirements. It would just take one, right, to
yeah,
swing the House for those 2 months. Hakeem Jeffries comes in. They immediately pass a resolution that Trump had engaged in insurrection in 2020 and is therefore under the 14th Amendment no longer eligible to hold office.
and you know what happens to the country at that point?
It would
It
be lighting
explodes.
the tinderbox, but that would be a scenario. That would be, you ask how they could do it with
Yeah,
that. That's how they could do it, because the 14th, when the Colorado Secretary of State pulled him off the ballot, when it went to the Supreme Court didn't make a decision that Trump was eligible. The Supreme Court said that only Congress can deem as someone as being participating with insurrection. There's been no such finding, and therefore you as a state are not able to make that decision yourself. They kind of went
right.
a loophole, which is the 14th Amendment says Congress is the one who does that. And if Congress does that resolution, the House, that's what the Congress is, the House, if
Yeah,
they pass the resolution that Trump had been an insurrectionist, the 14th Amendment does bar people from holding federal office. It's in the Constitution. That's going to be how they would sell it. And then that's when that would be lighting, that's fucking civil war,
yeah,
because
I
that's
think
when
so.
especially if he wins the popular vote too, like he looks like he would. You're talking
Yeah,
about now the guy who won the electoral college and the popular vote is being denied office on shenanigans. It would be full on problems.
what I think happens is what I think is more likely to happen is what David P brought up. I think she will 25th Amendment Biden, whether regardless of what happens in the election. I think they'll pull that one just to get it in the books that she was president.
I don't
Wouldn't
know that
surprise
what
me
they want
at
to
all.
they want to keep running on electing the first woman, so I don't know if they want to lose that.
Well, she'll go
Yeah.
back to being Indian, so it'll be the first Indian woman president. But they're petty enough that I could definitely see that happening.
I wouldn't
I
surprise me
don't
if she
know if
came
they're
out as
petty
being
enough to
gay
start the
too,
Civil
and she'd
War.
say, "I'm the first black lesbian Indian woman president."
Right.
Check
But
off all those boxes.
I see that as a more likely scenario than the Hakeem Jeffries scenario.
It depends on what their goal is. I mean, because what does
If their
that
goal
get
is to
you?
burn down the country, then
Yeah.
that's the way to do it.
I mean, if they feel like they control enough of the institutions of power and military, they might decide to go that route. Because the concept of Trump, may possibly followed by Vance, actually deconstructing the administrative state might be so abhorrent to them they'd rather burn it down and try to take power. Yeah, we'll see. I
Yeah,
just don't understand what they would gain by her being like, if she 25ths him and becomes president, it doesn't keep her in office.
no, it doesn't keep her in office, but at the same time, and it may be the best thing to happen for now because he's done. They've taken him off of every meeting. He's not doing any of his job. We still need
So
somebody running the country for the next few months, regardless of who wins this election. And Biden's not running the country. Arguably, having somebody actually behind the helm or at the helm is better than having him completely brain dead in there right now. As much as I
yeah,
wouldn't want Kamala making any decisions, it's at least getting it back to somebody is making a decision.
yeah, I can see that she might just be so egotistical she wants to be president before she
Yeah.
goes. Yeah. It would also mean that it would be help. Trump would sell so much more merch because all the people who bought the 47 stuff would have to
Yeah.
now buy
Get a
48.
48.
Yeah, and all you're saying, Trump would be immediately out there like, I'm going to give anybody who bought a 47 thing will get a 10% discount, on it, and you can get your 48 merch now at the Trump store. That's what
with
he would be doing.
with a little a little squirrel on the side of it that,
Uh,
Peanut, he was the best squirrel. They
he
killed
was.
him.
They killed him like a dog.
They
No,
put Peanut down.
they put Peanut down faster than I put down Soleimani.
It's kind of true.
They did actually. So, all right, yeah. So, everybody, hopefully you'll be
Yes,
joining
and
us
Fred
Tuesday.
Goj.
Yes, Fred is. It is. Oh, that's right. Sunday is Fred's day. We need to remember Fred, who's being covered by our chat window on the screen.
Yeah, he's back there. There he is.
There's Fred.
Yep. So join us on Tuesday night. Yeah, keep us as informed as you can, because there's lots of news sources Tuesday night, and we won't be able to keep an eye on all of them while also trying to have a conversation. So let us know what's going on while we try to let you know what's going on. And yeah, should be a interesting stream, and we'll see you then. I've got to fix the intro before I can play it as an outro, because I've got Chad's screen share on it. So
Oh no.
hope
Let me-
everybody has a good one and a great Sunday. We will see you later. Thanks for being here.
All right.
Here's the intro as an outro.
Bye.
Broken system chained and tangled up in lies. Voices shouting, screaming in defeat. Politicians playing games under darkened skies. Hope lost in the dust of the street. Red and blue, colors pouring from the sky. Debates turn to anger, the crowd gets loud. Punches flying in the blink of an eye. Truth buried deep beneath the shroud. Welcome to the bullpen, where we don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive. Faces on the screen, flashing perfect teeth. But behind those eyes, just rotting greed. Politicians turn to whispers beneath. They all just get what they need. Whispering conspiracies, drowning in their lies. Echoes of freedom, lost in cries. Spin the wheel of fate, let's see who'll rise. But this game will bleed you dry. Welcome to the bullpen, where we don't survive. These broken dreams we defend, trying to keep alive.